Hello, 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 and welcome in to Bear With Us by Bear Claw Media. I am Chris Bolin, joined as always by Ben Schleiger. Ben, how you doing, buddy?
Not too bad. Man, another week where it's like, if about 3 plays went better, the Bears might be undefeated this season. So like, yeah, to be in a spot like that when we're considering 12th ranked South Dakota, heinous that they're ranked that high, that they're not that high in my poll, I can tell you that. And also CSU, like, pretty great turnaround to what we had last year of just getting absolutely smoked and shamed. So, yeah, no, really happy with the Bears. Obviously, we wanted to win, but I mean, like, better quarterback play. Like, overall, the defense was trying really hard, even though we were missing our leading tackler and Might for a while. Overall, I think it was a really good team effort. I glaringly, LJ Phillips Jr., 319 yards of total yards on us, 302 on the ground. That is disgusting. Good job, sir. We can't let that ever happen again.
No, I think that's as simple as it can be. Is you can't allow 300 yards to one running back, and it was kind of weird because kudos to him. We went in thinking with Charles Pierre Jr. out that like maybe this running game would take a step back, but in steps LJ Phillips and just absolutely dominates. It felt similar to that second half of the CSU game where they kind of got whatever they wanted on the ground, and it mattered less there because UNC was milking a lead. But it was disgusting. It, but like that was kind of the lone part that was really just like, oh my god, what happened? The rest, like I think, played a solid game. The offense still feels a little bit conservative. I think you probably agree with that and I get why. Lamb made a good point in the coaches show when he talked to Jacob last week. They'd played most of the season with a two-score lead, and like naturally, when you have a two-score lead, you're gonna kind of be a little more conservative. So I did understand it more through the CSU and Shadron games, but it felt like the minute they decided to unleash the offense, all of a sudden they scored 11 unanswered points, come back in this one and force that overtime period. They kind of, I think they lost their chance to win in the end of regulation. I think when they didn't punch it in, had four chances from the 1 yard line to punch that in. I think that was ultimately their opportunity to win, even though good work, like Sprint and Willie out on the field. They executed well. This team looks much better. I don't want to say more well coached than the last couple years, but it feels like this is the stuff that Ed Lamb is like, we need to be on our Q's and P's, Q's and T's, dotting our T's and I's, whatever. This is the stuff where it feels like an Ed Lamb team has down, and it's been weird the last couple years with all these dumb, like 10 men out on the field for a punt type of penalties. And those seem gone this year, which has been swell. We're just kind of missing that last piece of scoring more than 17 points because we are now 3 for 3 scoring 17 this year.
Yeah, 100%. 17, I was kind of talking to Mom during the game. I was like, man, like, if we break 17, we're okay. But, like, that should not be our ceiling. That should not be our goal necessarily. We should be much above 17 as a goal. But, I mean, hey, if that's our standard where we're hitting 17, which is better than the last 2 years' averages for sure of
Which is
10.4 and
sad.
like 11.7, like, if we're getting above that, that is improvement. That is something to hang our hat on. But, you know, at some point we're gonna be in a dogfight offensively where we just have to go score for score for score. So I like where we're going, but I think it's kind of like in karate, like when you're punching trying to break a board or trying to break a brick. You're not punching the board, you're punching through the board. So let's not make 17 the goal. Let's make 24 the goal. Let's make 30 the goal, whatever it might be. But I do like what I'm seeing. It's a team that is inspired. It's a team that's trying. The play calling, albeit certain situations shitty, i.e. the goal line and fourth down. Ultimately, I didn't hate a lot of what we were doing. The stuff where we were trying to be cute or trying to be smart, like the Hank Wildcat shit, worked well early on. I think that needed just one more nuance to it to make it just a little bit more of like, well, it's a run or it's an option somewhere. Not saying you
Give
even
him
have
the
to be a
option to
pass,
pass. Yeah.
but like just one more nuance to it, even if it's a triple option rather than just an option play. I thought it was good, but it got tired later on. And I know Hank is a fantastic athlete and he falls forward for yards, as evidence when he got stopped at the 6 and fell down to the 2. That was fantastic, but at a certain point, line versus line, I think our guys did very well for how healthy we were. But at the same time, even though South Dakota lost a lot of people, there was a lot of just big nasty coyotes that I don't think we won the battle at the line this past weekend.
Yeah, that's a great point. Is I think in the heads of the coaches and the fan, honestly, I think coming into the season we were like, if this team's going to be good, it's going to be because they're like more physical, they're stronger, they can run the ball. Not that wasn't the only thing, but like that was kind of the offensive line we were looking at as like a strength of this team. And I don't think we it's not as improved as I was hoping. I don't want to speak for anybody else. Granted, some injuries, there's been some rotation. Jack Bacon went down in this last game. Hopefully he's okay. I know Frank Thompson, it looked like, dealt with some injuries. AJ Burton. So we're already rotating through some guys on the offensive line, but when you can't just hand the ball off up the middle and get 1 to 2 yards, it does get a lot tougher to score in that red zone. So they need to figure something out, because I think we were kind of talking a bit before we hopped on here, and they just left a lot of points on the field. They had early on that interception by Darryl Bryant. I believe it was 3-3 at that point. He returns it to like the 20. They immediately get to about the 1 yard line. Then Brody Judd, I think, like false start, moves back to the 5.
Quick question for you, because of course my phone was being an ass to me on that replay, because of course replays have been our burden, and I'm not saying it wasn't. It's just we didn't get a good clear time for replay on there. Was because when we scored the touchdown, was he short?
See, I saw it. My immediate thought was he was down at the 1. They called it the touchdown. But then when they reviewed it, it did look like it was a weird one, because he stretched
Right.
and like he was
Because the
kind of
stretch
like
looked good, but I didn't have a clear view of where his knees were, and
it,
trying to do
ex-
the whole like phone and broadcast, it wasn't working. Phone was saying kick rocks. But I was just curious if it was legitimately like just one of those where it's like, yeah, he was down. Like we can't bitch about replay 2 weeks in a row.
this one moved so quick that like it to me it did look like he made it in, but it wasn't like I wasn't so incensed as I was with the Carver Cheeks one. It was kind of that one 50-50. It felt like, since they called it a touchdown, I thought they would keep it, but also there it was and the stakes were lower, so maybe I was like, oh, they're still at the 1 yard line, they'll just punch it in. So I wasn't as upset, but to me it did look like he got in. But you're right, we can't cry a foul about the refs 2 weeks in a row.
I mean, plus the one the week before was more egregious, and we always hate in the Mountain West just a little bit for it. But yeah, no, this one I was like, oh, like if he was short, that sucks. And then Fisher and 88 false start, that did suck. So yeah, you're right. I think on that drive specifically, we definitely lost some points there.
But then I think that was maybe was that the one you were talking about where Hank went down and he was hit at the 6 and then fell forward to the
No, this
2,
was
I think
earlier
was
in
the
the
following.
game, I believe. So that one, it's just like we put ourselves out of out of position by the different penalties that we accrued there. But the rest of the game, like penalty wise, we were pretty decent. I think we were 5 for 35. So not terrible. Obviously those came in some pretty important scenarios. So just got to clean that up a little bit. But honestly, 5 for 35 is not terrible. It's just the times
That's
that
a
they
very
came.
yeah, that's very acceptable. It really was just that false start. Poor a bit of an unfortunate game for friend of the program, Fisher Clements. I think he was having a little trouble as a blocker. Big, tough Midwestern South Dakota boys were giving him some fits on a couple run plays.
Yeah, those
But
Yotes didn't miss any meals.
no, not at all. But they so then they were kick a field goal there, or I think that one was kick the field goal. Then the next one they get it back down to the 1 yard line, and they run back to back plays out of that heavy Kiai Keone set. And so something we were very familiar with last year. The ball got batted down at the line of scrimmage when he tried to throw on that fourth down. Which I wonder if I prefer the Hank Gibbs wildcat sets to the Keone ones, but I wonder if Keone's the only quarterback in the room who's practiced taking any snaps under center, because I think I've never seen Gibson or Gibbs run anything from under center, at least not this year. So the Keone sets were they worked at least once against CSU. I like the idea of finding a way to get a guy who, by all accounts, is a great team player, came in and performed admirably last year. I like the idea of finding ways to keep him involved, but also I don't think that's the most effective way to. I don't know. I'm losing a little confidence in how well it can work, because it just didn't really work last week. But but again, out of the same side of my mouth, I'm saying we need to figure out something kind of to score at the goal line. So that's kind of, maybe that's like their at least attempt 1.1.0. But it's same story as last week against CSU. 5 turnovers only generated 10 points. It wasn't the turnovers this week, but we had so many opportunities at the goal line. We didn't even talk about really the last like minute of just running into a brick wall for 3 times before rushing the field goal kicker out there. And especially, I do like the Hank Gibbs wildcat, like you were saying, but I agree, it needs one more wrinkle. And I think why not just throw a pass there? You do introduce like the old Bill Parcells, or I don't know if it's Parcells or whoever said, like, when you pass, only one good thing can happen and 2 bad things. But you don't have a timeout. You throw a pass there, you're going to the end zone. So like, you don't have to worry about it really being stopped short. And then if it's incomplete, you don't have to rush the kicker out. And if it is complete, congrats, you just scored the game-winning touchdown. So I do understand just kind of thinking if we have 3 tries, we'll be able to pick up 1 yard one time, but it's just very unfortunate.
Yeah, it's definitely should have went our way statistically, but size-wise and scheme-wise, it seems like the Yotes just had our number a little bit, and I don't think that's even necessarily like our line is bad or anything like that. I think our line is good. I think their gap pressure was just better than our pickup was. So I don't want to put any onus on the offensive line not being good enough, because I think they were. I think they gave us chances, but I think the gap pressure that South Dakota had was just enough that it was going to put us out of contention, just because it was an overmatch every time, and there was a lot of good pickups, especially like the running backs. I feel like they did a good job of picking up. I feel like the tight ends, even though we talked about Fisher having a little bit of a rough day, I think they ultimately had a lot of good pickups. I don't think I'm going to say I'll look for it as I'm talking, but I don't think there
are you
were
talking about
many,
sacks?
if any, sacks on. Okay, there was 1 sack on
I think
Gibson, so it's like 1 sack for the day. That's not bad.
He also slid down on that sack. Like, he had decided to run and then just got down, but hadn't passed the line of scrimmage.
Right, and that point, that's more of a
So
coverage sack anyways. But like, I'd like to give the special teams a shout out. I mean, sure, this was partially just Lylan just not being a good kicker and fucking shanked it. Also, like, above 40, like that is a decently hard kick. I know we expect so much of kickers, but yeah, 2 missed field goals that really kept us in the game. Also, like, just to start off the game with like them getting some good production and then missing the field goal, like, what a gift! What an absolute way to just continue on with the game, not having to be down 3-0. Like, kind of be like, okay, cool, we dodged the bullet, let's keep going. Also, like, third quarter, that was pretty sick that we majorly shanked that one. And like, shout out to our own guy, Jacob Willick. Like, Second quarter, he got two of them in. Both of them, a bit of a chip shot, a bit of a, pretty standard operations. But also shout out to him for, of course, we couldn't talk all day long. Should we have went for the win, and probably had a 60-40% of not making it, and ultimately lose the game before overtime? We can talk about that till we're blue in the face. But shout out to Jacob running out there on the field with about 20 seconds to set up, and put it through the uprights. Of course, 18 yards out, not the most crazy kick ever, but standard
But
operations, very
on
clean,
the wide
very
hash too,
functional.
from that close gets a little bit iffy. If, as you've probably
That's true. You got
experienced
to make
playing the
sure it
college
has a
football
nice
video game.
upward lift on it. Don't need any nasty opposing hands touching it all. So I know Jacob's been on our shit on social media. So Jacob, shout out, brother. Clean operation, good function.
Yeah, no, great work. Great. He's been nails, because that's not easy. That's like a field goal you see, not necessarily that one from like 18 yards, but the rushing the field goal unit on without a timeout is when you see college kickers especially miss all the time.
And everybody was
So
there. The blocking was good. Like it was a sexy operation of just like went out, rushed, did it well, like didn't freaking shank it. Last year, if we did this with Hunter, which of course we did a couple times, and it did not go right, whether it was blocked or shanked. So shout out to Jacob and the field goal crew. Definitely did their job on that. Also, Leo, absolutely murdering the ball on kickoff. 62.4 average, about as best as you can do. 3 touchbacks, and then in the punting game, like not crazy yardage, but again, he's very much a utility punter, which I think adds to our game a little bit. Like we love Hunter Green, and shout out that he's having a good year over at San Diego State. But Leo, like not crazy punts, but he got one in the 20, one touchback, and one for over 50 yards. So like overall, like kind of having like an assassin foot in the punting game, I think is really giving us a good edge. Like when he put it in that deep corner where I think they fair caught it about the 7, about the 8, like that was great field position. Like if that guy let it go out of bounds, favorable punt, it's probably at the 5 or deeper.
yeah, no, it's great. Unfortunately, LJ Phillips, like 2 plays later, had a 60-yard run and got all of them back. But no, I'm with you. Blumenschutz looked really good. He doesn't have the leg that Hunter Green has, but it doesn't matter, quite frankly. He has like other skills, and has done exactly everything asked of him. So he's had a great season. I feel unjustly attacked by Jacob Willig's comment on social media, because that video that he commented on, I was giving him a compliment, but he is like exceeded my expectations. Even he's been fantastic. It's so good to have like somebody you trust just running out there from 35 yards. Like I just like he hasn't kicked a ball, like even one that's gone in, he hasn't hit like a miss kick that like comes off his foot weird, or any that knuckle. They're all very, very technical, have like the end over end.
Like honestly, I can't, like we were talking about this a few weeks ago. Besides Ben Raybon, the stash, who went on to Mississippi State, like Marcus Combs, he was a pretty decent kicker for us when we were in school and whatnot during the Jacob Nip era. But like since Raybon, like it's been scary kicking, and to not sweat about that, just be like, yeah, Willig's gonna go out there and have a clean operation. Like it's such a relief, and I'm hoping that gives a lot of relief to the team. I know the team wasn't, it's varying degrees of experience and whatnot, but to have a little bit of a relief on special teams, especially in the field goal department, love it. Like love that that's just not not a liability for us, because obviously not having Nowatzki, and well, we're not going to have him for a little while. It sounds like Hudson Vogesser did a great job of stepping in there, but ultimately, like even though he had 16 tackles. Cam Chappa was next with 10 tackles. And then Daryl Brent Jr. had a great game. 6 tackles, half a TFL, and an interception. Like, we had good defensive play whenever LJ Phillips was not getting the ball. Like, ultimately, besides him, there was only 18 rushing yards. on 12 attempts.
That's what's crazy is like it wasn't like the whole South Dakota offensive line was gashing us and like, but for some reason every single time LJ Phillips got the ball it was 8 yards. And then I don't have, oh, I do have the stats in front of me. I can give you his name. That number 5 Watkins, like it felt like he had 3 or 4, yeah, a .7 average. He had Dominic Butts. It felt like anytime he saw Watkins come, he just met him 4 yards in the backfield. Like, but LJ Phillips all of a sudden wasn't getting touched until the second level. It was just kudos to that kid. Ran like hell, could not be tackled, but it was just a really weird, like, because you'd expect some of the other guys to have more success when somebody's having that much success running the ball.
Right. And even like in the passing game, like there was a ton of drops. Like, my God, there was a ton of drops. Aiden Bowman went from potentially an all conference, potentially an all American type prospect last year to absolutely like even below UNC standards, like 7 for 19 for 99 yards. Sure, he got a touchdown in there. He also threw a sweet pick to Darrell Bryant Jr., which kudos to sophomore linebacker Carson Keach. Great job at
Yes,
just getting a hand in there, just popping the ball
for
up
getting a
just
helmet in
slightly
there.
so Darrell Bryant could take that away. Also, shout out Mecky Toms. Almost had a pick. Goes down as a pass deflection. That pick could have been huge. Yeah, let's definitely, have that as a nightmare just for a night or two. Focus on that. But yeah, great job being in the right place, Mikey. Overall, I liked a lot of what the defense did. It's just whenever LJ Phillips was murdering us, just being more athletic, and that's just gonna happen. You run into some freaky guys who could probably, be a letterman in 7 different sports, and that's just one of those things where you just have to improvise and game plan for it. So that's where I'm like, I almost want to give the coaches like a gold star, but I'm gonna give them like 3/4 of a gold star because we can't let these basketball type players, these athletic freaks, murder us for 300 yards. That's just unacceptable. But the rest of the operation, I think we did pretty decent. Of course, some drops went in our favor, but we can chalk it up to us scaring the receivers or scaring Bowman with some pressure.
I think we can also chalk it up to them getting one target in the, like, not getting targeted in the game until like the third quarter because the running game was so successful, that it, like, I think it's just a little bit rougher when you can't get into any flow as a wide receiver. But Ben, I think we've officially like buried the lead, covered it with dirt, planted several, like, everything we could think of over the top of it, and then dug all that out and poured concrete and built buildings over it because we have a quarterback finally, buddy. We actually 336 yards on 28 of 39. Eric Gibson Jr. just looking legitimately like the only thing holding him back was having to hand the ball off. Um, and that's I joke about that, but it really looks like his potential is like I think, and maybe it's because the bar has been set so low for UNC that we just haven't had a guy at quarterback in so long. But it feels like the play calling is almost the only thing kind of limiting him because when they open it up, both against CSU and against South Dakota here, it works really well. And he found big Charlie Garrison a handful of times. What did he finish with? 7 catches for 117 yards or 112 yards. So great coming out game for him after not really getting too many targets the first 2 weeks. But Eric Gibson Jr., man, is just, and he seems, I continue to be like not amazed because they kept telling us this was who he was, but just very impressed by his moxie, like audibles at the line of scrimmage, like the hard counts, and just never rattled both CSU and South Dakota, 2 very loud environments. And I just cannot give this man enough flowers. He brings me so much joy to watch him play the quarterback position. He's always keeping his eyes downfield. He's not as athletic as Castelli, but also not looking to run as much as Castelli. So he does kind of bounce around in the pocket. Even if he gets out of the pocket, he's still looking downfield. And I think a lot of those passes to Garrison were the third or fourth read where he made his like way from the right across the field. Nobody was open, had to like readjust in the pocket, and then Garrison was kind of the outlet there. And it's just it's so fun, Ben. It's just fun to watch football played with a competent quarterback.
Right. It's pretty crazy. I mean, like, we've suffered for a long time, um, just since Jacob Nip and Jacob Nip went down a dime a dozen times overall. So yeah, that it really is just a burden on UNC football that we just haven't had somebody just really dial it in like that. Costelli had moments for sure, but really on the season, 66% completion rate. This past weekend was almost 72%, and I like what he does. I think you gave him all the flowers that I was looking to give him as well, especially the audibles. Like, we don't always see when somebody's trying to make an audible at the line. A lot of that is like you can do it under center, or you can do it without giving away a head nod or whatnot. But there was at least one or two times where he went and he kind of like checked down to everybody. Everybody was like got the secondary call, and those plays went well. Like, it wasn't anything scary. Albeit I as much as I do want him to get kind of like the reins released even more, he did almost throw a pick when he was trying to hit Rocco in the corner of the end zone. That was a scary throw. Definitely might have been a little bit of our gift getting back, kind of as like Mekhi didn't
Had
get his. Like, that was a gift
a
for
couple
Bowman.
of those too, because that
So
Keone pass that was batted could have been picked at the goal line as well.
that one was a heart stopper as well, especially since the cameraman had a he lost it as well. So we're like, oh boy, we can't even see the ball. I hope it just doesn't come down in a pair of red arms. But ultimately, yeah, I love Gibson and what he's doing so far. I gotta say, was not expecting this from him. Springtime, um, gotta say, all of the quarterbacks behind Costelli, except for Box, really had some significant accuracy and timing issues that felt like this is just going to be just ducks in the air, just getting picked all day long. Gotta say, Gibson has had really clean operation, especially like long balls down the field, like to the numbers or to the hashes, has been absolutely money. Like, you could probably get like a laundry basket just bigger than a football, and it would probably hit the rim or inside the basket easily. His drop it down to the numbers about 30 to 40 yards away. I think this time was 49 yards. Like, great. Also, great operation. I don't know if Cheeks. I know he was a little bit winded on the play because he did kind of land on the ball. I don't know if it was him or Gibson or both, or maybe Coach was just like rush, rush, rush. Like, not that it was necessarily a worry for the catch, but of course Cheeks coming down with the ball, landing on it. I don't know. We felt like it was a bit of a compliment to the offense where they're like, let's not even fucking let replay. Let's not let the refs think about this at all. Let's run a play, even if it's shitty. Let's not let replay dictate our fate. I don't know if that was even a consideration by anybody on the South Dakota side or the refs, but just as an operation in general, just hustle. And also, if it was hustle to avoid any kind of, you know, conversation about whether it was a catch or not, because I don't think it was, but Cheeks just kind of has some bad juju on him from getting not the flowers he deserves for sure, because he's done a great job. So I think just that operation of just running up there, even if there was like a 30% worry, I think kudos to the offense. Also, Cheeks, saw a lot of love for him online, as like people were saying like, wow, he's the receiver who's really fighting for the ball. He's jumping up, he's making like athletic actions to try to take the ball in. And 3 for 95 with a long of 49. I mean, even with that, like, still was like 2 for 45. Like, pretty great day for him.
Yeah, and I wonder how much of them rushing up to the line there was it was more of a thing they did with Blair Peterson, but I know when they had success, as very limited as it was that first year, they would try to hustle after like bigger plays. So I wonder if there's a bit of that as well. And I think it worked because if we're thinking of the same one, because there were two deep balls, but I think the big one was in the fourth quarter where they sprinted up to the line and then they handed off to Rocco for I think it like kind of caught the defense off guard too, that Rocco was able to get like 9 yards and get up to the goal line to set up that 3-play stand by South Dakota. But you're right, Cheeks. Ben, can you believe that there were people who, when he went in the portal, they were criticizing Ed Lamb for bringing him back?
I mean, principal fact, yes, I can't believe it. Also, like the fact that he has outshined everybody around him. Like, I still don't quite understand the receiving game because like we have Garrison's our top receiver this week, which of course do it works for sure. But also like there's Rocco. We finally got to see a little bit more of Dawson Menegatti, which I liked that. Luke Wooten finally got a pass. Fisher got 2 throws to him, and Brody Judd. But like, it seems like what my wish for the offense is going forward is we get more receivers more involved. I don't want to take away from the tight ends or the running backs at all because as much as we did throw to Rocco, it did work out. I just feel like we need to have the receivers more involved. Like more receivers need to be touching the ball and getting involved. Like Carver and Braden, I feel like they've really solidified themselves as the 1 and the 2. Dawson, I feel like he's stepped up quite a bit. Him and Luke are definitely the good like 2A and 2B. But I want to see more from the receiver room. Like we have good sized guys. Like I want to see us just continue to work guys into the rotation. Because I feel like if something does need to be rotational, I feel like the receiver room needs to be rotational rather than the running back room. I liked what we did overall, but honestly, like I was really impressed with Johnson, and I feel like even as much as he got stopped, he was getting more production than Rocco, and like on the stat sheet, it doesn't turn out that way. It's 3.3 versus 3.1. Um, Ultimately, I just feel like Johnson had a better sense of the gaps and whatnot, but Rocco did have some good attempts at it. So stats wise, they're basically identical. It's just I feel like if we're gonna get rotational with something, it needs to be the receiving room rather than the running.
Fair. I think I'm very satisfied with the rotations this season. I think they're using the running backs. They have 4. They've had 3 really. They've used 3 running backs every game more or less. Because Price barely really got any carries, so it was mostly 2 running backs last against South Dakota. But I am more encouraged. I get what you're saying about more wide receivers, and I think there are a lot more. I think the guys are on the field a lot. They're just. I wonder how much of it is plays designed to get to Cheeks and Monroe versus Gibson is comfortable with those guys versus whatever it may be. But I do like seeing uh, Monroe get more involved, which is weird to say because he was our leading receiver last year and he's never really fallen out of the rotation or the targets list. But it did feel like I feel like he is more talented than he's been able to show, and it was nice that there's been a couple like deeper. I feel like he works really well in that 10 to 15 yard range. Like Cheek seems either like those RPO quick slants or like fades down the sideline, where I think Monroe kind of works in that middle ground really well. And I think that's a crucial like part of the game, of the pass game, if you want to have consistency, because they're like chunk plays, but they're much more reliable than the well shit, I don't even know, man. Those 50-50 balls to Carver Cheeks, I think the only one that he hasn't come down with is the touchdown against CSU. Like, but aside from 1 or 2 that were overthrown, I legit
He came down
what
with it; they just didn't like it.
well, okay, yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
I want to
More
give
to my
Carver
point.
his praise. We all think he came down with it, but officially, it's listed as he did.
It, but like that's the only one that's been in range that he didn't come down with, and there's been at least 7 or 8 so far. So it's crazy. Like almost hell, if you see him 1-on-1, just throw it in that direction. Like why not at this point? But I'm yeah I'm glad to see, and I agree. I like Menegatti. I like him and how they're kind of using some of the misdirection, like little pitches, like jet sweep type of stuff for him. Um, And I like hammered this home on the radio broadcast yesterday, but I'm with you. Brandon Johnson, I think I would like to see him get the lion's share of carries. I wonder how much of it is Rocco probably has been around for longer. Maybe he knows the playbook a little better. Maybe he's better in like the pass pro that I'm not great at picking up on that while watching. So there could be a bunch of reasons why Rocco's getting more snaps, even though Johnson got more carries today.
Right, and I'm not trying to dunk on Rocco to any degree because I like Rocco for sure. It's just as like pure running back um, production, and of course stats are pretty even this week. It was just somebody got 2/3 of it versus 1/3, but essentially like it's just for me it's vision. I like everything that Rocco does. It's just his vision and his decision making. I think it's purely because he's just switching from defense to offense because he was a team player and he played secondary for us very well um, for a season. And it's just like I think it's that switch. I think he's just warming up to it still. So sure, we definitely need to keep on giving him reps so he can continue to get as hot as Price and Johnson are. It's just I'd like to see him just a little bit more utility wise, kind of like Gwyn. And I know Gwyn's not available right now, but I like him as that utility player that like kind of like a well Jamal Charles isn't quite the right type, but essentially like that dual threat of like he could be like a quick sprinter, one cut back up the middle, or he could go out for a Texas route or a swing route or whatnot. A lot of what he got this weekend, and do very well with that. I like him more as a gadget guy, not to label that as anything negative, but purely in the sense of like we need you for these specific plays, and like these specific plays, you're going to be a kingmaker for us on this. Brandon Johnson, I think just he looks very durable. I know Rocco's very tough and whatnot, and he looks like he went through a zinger or something with his elbow or shoulder. But I think his durability was shown very well this weekend. It's just I think Johnson's a little bit more accustomed to just that tough running.
I agree 100% with you, actually. And I wonder if they've seen like a slipperiness, a shiftiness out of Rocco in practice that we haven't seen yet in games, because they do. They seem more than content to get him the ball in space. He's back to return kicks. So I think maybe he does have something there with breaking tackles that he just hasn't unleashed yet in game. So I do reserve the right to kind of change. But I agree. And I think the coaching staff kind of agrees. At least it seemed like they are trending that way this week. And I think Rocco was probably on the field more than Brandon Johnson. Just if we counted snaps, which nobody tracks that, and I'm not going to be the guy who does. But I think he's like he was used more in that kind of not slop, but utility role, like a relief valve. And he just maybe it's a kudos to CSU and South Dakota's defenders that like they were able to wrap him up in open space. Which actually kind of brings me to my I think a good way to tie a bow on this episode. How good is UNC? Because very close losses to a CSU team that, in theory, will probably make a bowl game, or at least should by all accounts. And then to a South Dakota team who is, I know, yeah, that face is probably correct, um, but you never know with these early season stuff. But then South Dakota, who is top 5 coming into the season and has disappointed. So it's I could see honestly UNC won't make either of the polls the top 25. I can't I see no way they would if they didn't last
Bruce
week.
Barnum will put him in there.
Hey, and we appreciate Barney for that, but I I could legitimately think because you could argue that they should be 3-0. They're not. They're 1-2. So you have to take that into account. But I think there's a very easy like 2 switches that you make and you see this team at 3-0. And if they were 3-0 with wins over South Dakota and CSU, I could see them top 15 in the top 25 polls. I think they fall this year into a range that we have talked about a lot, where it's like that 15 through 40, where it's like you could put them in almost any order. So Ben, how good do you think this UNC team is this year? Because I'm like struggling to quantify it with the results we've seen.
Well, I have a little fun fact to kind of percolate that thought a little bit. Uh, Chris, how many yards off of last year's passing leader do you think Gibson is? Because it is not a lot. It's probably about a
Oh,
game's worth per se.
is what is it like 200-300?
Yeah, yeah, you're in the right ballpark. It Gibson is 261 away from
Oh my
last
God.
year's leading
That's
passer.
two. That's two. He's played two games basically because he had what 35 yards in that Shadron. He's played two games and he is on pace. Granted, Keone, I assume, is the passing leader, and he
Right.
probably played what 7, but
Well, and
still,
there's some
it's
some games where I don't think we even broke 100 on passing. So definitely a unique situation last year. Our own unique slice of very hot, very brimstone hell of quarterback position. But albeit that 2 games in, decent performances against tough opponents, and he's only roughly a game or two's passing away from that. Also, like
oh,
just
that's a
having
first half with how I've built him up in my head.
right, like we're above our scoring average. Like the quarterback play this week was outstanding. So like, the yards that we were able to have in the quarterback side was a huge, huge plus side for us. Of course, we were a liability on the goal line, but the liability not being passing yards is a sweet treat for Bears fans. So, how good are we? I think it makes next week a must win. I think that's kind of like my transition, but also my cop out is I picked us on our little text messages. I picked us to win. I feel like there was enough times where we could have won, especially in
Yeah.
regulation, but of course, execution and just ability to perform, we just kind of missed the mark a few times. So ultimately, that is a mark against me on the picks, but I feel like it was possible. Obviously, CSU was very possible, and that ended horribly and tragically and not fair. But going into this week against a Houston Christian team that just got mollywopped by the Nebraska Cornhuskers, they got to be licking their wounds a little bit, even as they are Huskies. But Huskies versus Bears, I'm going to take a Bear.
Yeah, I think this is a test where it will show, are we just like if but every other team that would be coming into this week 4 game with our resume, like ultimately, let's say a disappointing, like a win against the D2, but probably not as emphatic as most people were hoping for. And then 2 like heartbreaking losses against 2 good teams. Let's be honest. CSU would be, if they were in the FCS, CSU would be they would be a top 5 FCS team just based on the roster, and South Dakota, based on the roster, was voted a top 5 FCS team. They Any other team coming in from playing like that, having UNC's resume, would expect to win by 2 to 3 touchdowns at Houston Christian. It should be a game where I'm not going to say they're going to blow them out, but it should be a Shadron-esque game where they control it. They are able to kind of do what they want, and they should be able to play their game and win. They shouldn't have to like really adjust to too much that Houston Christian's doing. But that being said, UNC still feels, I've been burned too many times in the past where if this team lost a heartbreaking game to Houston Christian, I don't think I'd be that surprised. Like I'm not expecting that because I also think UNC should go in and win. But I wonder if there is still the fact that we've lost 2 games that were very winnable, though they've played well, I do still wonder about that learning to win thing that I know Lamb got sick of me asking about last year for the most part. But I do think, and I think he kind of conceded to me a bit at the end where he's like, maybe we do need to learn how to win. Like it wasn't something he ever, like I thought, but so that's the one piece of this that really scares me, is like UNC needs to just get, even though they got it against the D2, they need to go in on the road against the opponent that they're in theory better than and just take care of business. Like, because if they don't, it feels like it's more of a mental than a physical thing.
Yeah, 100%. I think there was definitely a mismatch physically for the goal line stands of us trying to get it in the goal line. or getting into the touchdown. And also like the fourth downs, I think we're 0 for 3 or no, we were 1 for 4, maybe 2 for 5 on fourth downs. Like not a great percentage. Obviously, food left on the table for there, so we can't be wasting that, especially when we're complaining about not having enough protein. We need to get after that. We need to clean that up. Sure, that was mostly physical, but let's just hit the film room because like the interesting little wildcat stuff with Hank, although it got tired later in the game, it had early success and it was kind of like a smart kind of like nichey thing that worked out. So I think that's what they need to continue to do is like continue to not be afraid to evolve a little bit because you're going to have things that work, things that don't work, things that you were surprised that worked, and some things that you were surprised that didn't work. So you just have to continue to evolve basically. And like the next evolution is getting to 2 wins on a season. And I think that's doable this week. We got kind of like a sweet smattering, a little hodgepodge of smorgasbord of opponents from Houston Christian. They played Arkansas Baptist. I don't even know if they're even D2.
That's Bishop Sycamore level of schools
It
right there
might
with
be,
Arkansas
yeah.
Baptist.
And then they played Eastern Kentucky, decent school there as well. And then Nebraska, obviously, much and above. So they really showed us a different look every time. Obviously, Nebraska was just terrible, but they leaned more rushing than receiving, and it seems like rushing is their um, is kind of like their sweet spot. Like obviously, 400 yards in the Arkansas Baptist game, that's a little bit of an asterisk because you're playing down a level. But their passing yards have not been off the charts no matter what. They've had kind of UNC level passing on all of them. And while they have had, um, 3 touchdowns out of the deal, that's not a lot to speak on the season. 8 touchdowns against Arkansas Baptist on the season rushing. That's kind of silly. So I'm not going to put too much onus on that right now, but I think they're willing to switch it up to whatever they need to do to win the game. And I think that's kind of what we need to, the mindset that we need to be in that sense of, sure, they got mollywopped by Nebraska, but they had fun with Arkansas Baptist. 69-0, that's a rough result right there. But also like receiving votes Eastern Kentucky, like a 10-20 loss, that's not bad. So like this team can play. They're not like bottom of the barrel necessarily, but also like it seems gettable. Like number 12 South Dakota was in a position to lose multiple times against us. So CSU, like we led for 59 minutes and 14 seconds. Like literally like almost the whole game time. So this feels like a gettable game.
Arkansas Baptist is NAIA. I did a little research, and they went
Oh,
0-9 last year.
then they better go 70 burger on them.
Yeah. So, but no, I think you're right. I think I've almost feel like I've turned a corner in the way I'm thinking about it a little bit more than you have. In the way you said, number 12 South Dakota almost had multiple chances to lose to UNC. And I think of it, I almost am looking at South Dakota as not a like opponent, but I don't see that as like a holy shit, we almost beat South Dakota. I feel like I'm starting to come around confidence wise, where it's like, okay, we had a good chance to beat a good team. And I wish we would have, but I'm also encouraged because I think we are doing all the things a good team does, which it is just exciting because we have for the last 2 years done all the things a bad team does, and now we're still not over the hump, and we're still like they still are. If you want to look at it in the most negative, instead of like breaking our hearts in a like 1.0 way, they're breaking them in like a 2.0 way with the normally they would have just lost to CSU on that BFN touchdown and nothing would have happened. But instead, they scored the game winning touchdown and had it overturned. And this week, normally they would have probably not scored that last touchdown and field goal, and it would have been a competitive, hard fought like 17-9 or 17-6 loss, But instead, they're taking that one extra step, and it's only making us hurt more at the moment. But I think it's a sign towards you got to take them one step at a time. So like hopefully moving forward. And I think if they can get the confidence of a win against Houston Christian, it will bode really well for a Big Sky slate that all of a sudden doesn't look so dreary, you know?
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting because, if we're going to include the Arkansas Baptist stats, then like they do have a quarterback or a running back who has 286 yards on the year with 5 touchdowns, and he's got 40 carries, and then they're kind of running a 1-2 punch, it looks like, at least statistically, where the second running back has 175 yards on the year and 3 touchdowns. So we got a redshirt freshman, from Texas, being kind of like a scat back type at 5'9", 175, and then we have a another just kind of like carbon copy of that. So this is going to be kind of one of those tests of, yeah, we got murdered by LJ Phillips. LJ Phillips single-handedly put UNC's hopes out of reach. So can we contain some possible scatbacks again, because their quarterback is not exactly killing it this year. He's at 54% completion rate with 368 yards and 2 touchdowns to 1 interception. So sure, like that's not great against the opponents that he's had. 6'2", 210, redshirt senior, so that's most likely going to be their threat going forward. Can we contain him? And really, they're using 2 receivers just like we are. So they have a redshirt freshman. Again, like a little worrisome that redshirt freshmen are making such an appearance, but also we have to take that NAI game with a grain of salt. So he's 6'2", 180. And their second receiver, who's getting the lion's share of results, is 6'3", 190. So tall receivers and scat backs is going to be our challenge this week. Can we take those out of the equation and really get after it? Defensively, there's nothing really to take away from that other than the top 3 guys, tackling wise, are a safety, a linebacker, and another safety. So not exactly a great showing, or not really a pattern that we can take away from that on defense right now, especially with them just playing an FBS game. So I think scat backs and tall receivers is going to be the challenge. And honestly, if we had to face something against a opponent that we should win, I think that does make it just a little bit harder on us. Our corners are not exactly vertically excelling, and also,
See, I disagree. I would say I was like beating that drum 2 years ago. I think Lamb's got his guys in there now. And I don't think there's a cornerback on the roster under 6 foot. There might be like one, but I have been very, not to derail your monologue, but I've been very impressed by what I've seen by the secondary this year.
oh no, I've been impressed as well. I mean, like averaging an interception a game. Also, like Daryl Bryant, he kind of missed out on one. I think against Shadron. I didn't see all of the CSU game yet, but I'm sure there's probably an opportunity in there where we could have taken away a pick. And then Mekhi just didn't pull one all the way into him this week. So we could ultimately be at 2 interceptions average a week almost, if some things went a little differently, or we just had a little more timing to get those fundamentals in. So I think the secondary can definitely handle this challenge. It's just size wise, it is going to be kind of our Achilles heel of just like big receiver who could be fast, and shifty running back who has a little bit of confidence from a gimme game per se.
No, it'll be an interesting test, and I think we'll know. I mean, Sky Blue says star witness, but I think we'll know more after this week, after we have a little bit more added to the sample size. But any closing thoughts, whether it be on looking back to the South Dakota game or looking forward to Houston Christian?
I think let's keep in mind like good efforts at CSU, good efforts at South Dakota. Definitely give everybody self a pat on the back, but let's get past 17. Like 17, we've seen 17 3 weeks in a row. Let's show that we're not offensively challenged. We're not score challenged. Like this is a team that we could score more than 17 against. I also think the same for the next week with our conference home opener, is that 17 is possible, and in 2 weeks definitely needed to be above 17. I don't think we can just get away with a fantastic defensive effort against Idaho State. So I think this needs to be a statement game. I know, putting pressure on it for sure, of course, because Houston Christian's not exactly a world beater, but I think we need to look like world beaters this week. We've got some hype. We've got some close results. Let's go out and put the Huskies in the dirt, get past 17, and have some defensive cleanups for sure.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. So we need to, instead of, I think we're still kind of caught in that, like, calling the offense as if we are the underdogs. And Houston Christian is, I feel like, I don't know what the line's going to be. I wouldn't be surprised if this was the first FCS game UNC was actually favored in 3 years. But or actually, no, that's wrong. They were favored against Cal Poly. It was silly, but that's. But yeah, no, we have dudes. I think let's let them fucking play. Let them run. It's like when you're playing NCAA or college football 25 or whatever, and like you're going to Georgia and you're like, okay, I kind of need everything to go right. I need to like outsmart this defense. But then when you're going to Georgia State, you're like, okay, let me just run this slot fade and let me just spam it and let me get some deep plays. And there's like a level of like knowing that you're competent and that you're actually maybe the better team. So that's what I hope to see from this Houston Christian game, but very encouraged by everything that we've seen so far this year. And it feels good as a Bears fan to have like this hope that this was where week 4 last year was where the dream was kind of crushed, because this is when Hank Gibbs went down against not Abilene, SF Austin. So it feels like we're light years ahead of where we were last year, and we just need to keep building on it and keep moving ahead.
Yeah, here's my last little like segment for this. Is what's your 2 wishes and a worry? My 2 wishes is that we break 17, we clean up the defense where we're not allowing like huge chunk plays at a time. I guess that kind of is my worry as well. But my worry right now, outside of just like cleaning up the defense, is just making sure that we actually get out of our heads and win this game.
Yeah, I think that's my worry as well, is that like there's something hanging over. Like, I don't want to say a curse, but there is something, like we're just bound to lose these close games. So, but my two, what was it? 2 hopes and a worry?
Yeah, 2 wishes and a worry.
My 2 wishes are, let me give it something tangible. I want to see Eric Gibson throw the ball 18 times in the first half next week. And I want to see, I think we need to, don't want this to be a let's get a 2-score lead and then just like run it out. I want this to be a confidence building game where we come in and just smack the shit out of them. That's my biggest wish, that it's like never in doubt. But yeah, and then my worry is that there is some like curse hanging over this program or mental block that we're just unable to actually win these games that we should win. But all right. So as always, if you like what we're doing, please like, subscribe, comment, review, all that good stuff. Tell your mom to like, subscribe, comment, and review. If you don't like what we're doing, Ben's DMs are always open. That is at Bear Claw Media on Twitter. Tweets by Ben Schleiger. Give him your worst.